The celestial horizon glided through the uncharted expanse of the Peregrine Nebula, a glowing lattice of swirling colors that seemed to stretch into eternity. It was the pinnacle of human engineering, a luxury liner boasting everything from zero-gravity spas to holographic theaters. For its passengers, the journey was as much about indulgence as discovery. Marcus Ryland, however, was finding solace not in opulence but in the simplicity of a drink and the view. Seated at the observation lounge's panoramic window, Marcus swirled the amber contents of his glass. The nebula's light refracted through the crystalline structure of the drink, casting fleeting rainbows on his hands. A former logistics officer with a quiet demeanor, Marcus had traded years of stress and precise planning for a rare vacation, a chance to be just another face among the crowd. He exhaled, letting the cosmic spectacle wash over him. Nearby, a group of tourists chattered excitedly. An older woman adjusted her wide-brimmed hat while an android server floated by, delivering an elaborate tray of beverages. The atmosphere was one of peaceful wonder, until it wasn't. The lights dimmed abruptly, plunging the lounge into a murky twilight. A low, unnatural hum resonated through the walls. Marcus straightened, his trained instincts kicking in. The hum deepened, followed by a sharp, metallic screech that rippled through the ship's hull. Then came the klaxon, a deep, bone-shaking wail that silenced every voice in the room. Marcus stood, heart-pounding, as the celestial horizon shuddered violently. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the captain's strained voice over the intercom, "this is an emergency!" The message cut off mid-sentence. A collective gasp swept the room as the ship listed slightly to one side. Marcus caught a glimpse of something out of the window, a dark, angular shape blotting out part of the nebula's light. A ship. No, a vessel, far smaller and sleeker than the celestial horizon, had attached itself like a predator fastening onto prey. The observation lounge erupted into chaos. People stumbled over furniture, shouting questions and cries of alarm. Android servers froze in place, their sensors overwhelmed by the commotion. Marcus's mind raced. He recognized the ship's configuration, a raider-class vessel, notorious for hit-and-run tactics. These weren't mere pirates looking for valuables, they were professionals. He scanned the room, already strategizing. Suddenly, the doors hissed open and a group of aliens stormed in. They were tall and wiry, their bodies covered in chitinous plating that shimmered like oil slicks. Each carried a sleek energy weapon and wore a translucent helmet. Their movements were precise, military, leaving no doubt about their training. "Remain still," one of the aliens barked in an unnaturally synthesized voice, the sound of it grating and hollow. A small device clipped to its chest emitted the translated command, a delay making the words feel disconnected from the alien's sharp mandible movements. Marcus stayed rooted, assessing. The aliens herded passengers into a central group with cold efficiency, their weapons raised but not yet firing. They didn't seem interested in killing, at least not yet. He noted the absence of ship security personnel, a chilling indication that the crew might have already been neutralized. As the passengers were marched through the corridors, Marcus observed their captors closely. The aliens communicated via rapid clicks and chirps, relying on their translators to issue orders to humans. They carried no visible shielding devices, but their armor looked formidable. More importantly, they appeared to move in small, predictable squads, covering one another's blind spots but leaving gaps that a trained eye like Marcus's could exploit. The group was funneled into the grand atrium, the celestial horizon's largest open space, an architectural marvel of glass-like polymers and gleaming metal. Its soaring ceilings and cascading light displays now served as a prison. Passengers huddled together in clusters, murmuring in hushed panic. Marcus edged toward the back of the group, keeping his movements subtle. He spotted what he was looking for, a maintenance hatch tucked into the corner of the atrium, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. A service corridor. He filed the information away for later. The aliens were busy setting up a field terminal, a humming device that emitted a faint blue glow. One of them seemed to be coordinating the operation, gesturing sharply at its underlings. Marcus's eyes narrowed. That alien's helmet had a slightly different design, likely signifying leadership. Its movements were more deliberate, more commanding. A sharp crack jolted Marcus's attention back to the present. An alien had struck a passenger who had tried to argue. The man crumpled to the floor, clutching his face. The room fell deathly silent. "Compliance ensures survival," the leader's synthesized voice grated. It gestured to the rest of the passengers, then pointed toward the rear of the atrium. "Sit." The crowd obeyed, sinking to the floor in terrified submission. Marcus lowered himself as well, blending in. His mind raced. If he was going to act, he needed a plan, and fast. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. The aliens maintained their dominance, patrolling the atrium with their weapons ready. Every so often, they barked commands or shoved someone who moved too slowly. Tension hung heavy in the air. Marcus kept his head down, but his eyes sharp. He noted their routines, the way they cycled patrols, the moments when their attention waned. He also observed the field terminal more closely. It appeared to be interfacing with the Celestial Horizon systems, its purpose unclear but ominous. The aliens were clearly after more than just valuables. Finally, a distraction came. A nervous young man, perhaps in his early 20s, bolted from the group, making a break for the far door. The aliens reacted instantly. A sharp crack of energy lit the room, and the man crumpled mid-stride, unconscious or worse. The display of force cowed the passengers further, but it also gave Marcus what he needed, a momentary lapse in the alien's focus. He slipped toward the maintenance hatch, keeping low and quiet. The aliens didn't notice, too busy reasserting control. With deft hands, Marcus found the manual override latch and pulled. The hatch slid open with a soft hiss. He ducked inside, sealing it behind him. The corridor beyond was narrow and dimly lit, a stark contrast to the atrium's grandeur. Pipes and conduits lined the walls, and the hum of the ship's systems filled the space. Marcus moved quickly but cautiously, his boots making barely a sound against the grated floor. He paused at an access terminal, pulling up a schematic of the ship. The pirates had disabled most major systems, including internal communications, but the maintenance network still had limited functionality. Marcus studied the map. If he could reach the engineering bay, he might be able to regain control of the ship, or at least sabotage whatever the aliens were planning. But first he needed tools. The maintenance corridor led Marcus to a small storage room. Inside, he found a utility belt with basic tools, a plasma cutter, a multi-tool, and a portable diagnostic scanner. He strapped it on, the weight familiar and reassuring. His time as a logistics officer had taught him the value of preparation, and now every second counted. As he exited the room, he heard voices, alien clicks and chirps echoing down the corridor. He ducked into the shadows, heart pounding. Two aliens passed by, their helmets swiveling as they scanned the area. They didn't notice him. Marcus waited until their footsteps faded before continuing. The engineering bay was just ahead, but so were more pirates. Marcus crouched behind a junction box, observing their movements. They had set up another field terminal here, and a pair of aliens were guarding it while a third worked on the device. Marcus's mind worked rapidly. He couldn't take them head on, but he didn't need to. He focused on the environment, exposed conduits, a stack of heavy equipment crates, and a dangling power cable. The beginnings of a plan formed. He moved quickly and deliberately, using his tools to rig a makeshift trap. It wasn't elegant, but it didn't need to be. A timed plasma cutter sliced through the power cable, sending it swinging down toward the guards just as Marcus triggered the release on the crates. The combined chaos was enough to incapacitate two of the aliens. The third turned, weapon raised, but Marcus was faster. He lunged, using the multi-tool's shock setting to disable the pirate's translator. Confused and disoriented, the alien flailed, giving Marcus the opening he needed to knock it unconscious. Breathing heavily, Marcus approached the field terminal. He didn't understand the alien language, but the device's interface was intuitive enough for him to recognize critical systems: propulsion, life support, and security. The pirates were trying to bypass the ship's lockdown protocols. Marcus input a countermeasure, locking them out and setting up a recursive loop to delay their progress. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it bought him time. As Marcus slipped back into the maintenance corridors, he felt a grim determination settle over him. The aliens were methodical, but so was he. They had underestimated their prey, and now he had the advantage of knowledge and surprise. The Celestial Horizon was a ship designed for luxury, not battle. Its crew and passengers weren't soldiers, but Marcus wasn't just a tourist anymore. He was a man with a plan, and the resolve to see it through. The silent invasion wasn't over, but neither was the fight. The bowels of the Celestial Horizon were a maze of interlocking maintenance corridors, twisting conduits and forgotten utility spaces. Marcus Ryland moved through them with practiced precision, the decades-old reflexes of a logistics officer snapping back into place. The ship's hum surrounded him, a reminder that time was short. He knew the invaders wouldn't sit idle for long. He paused at a junction, studying the schematic displayed on his portable diagnostic scanner. The pirates' field terminals were distributed across key sectors of the ship: engineering, communications, and navigation. Disabling these would slow their progress, but with his limited tools, Marcus needed to think bigger, control their environment, make them doubt themselves. The idea came to him as he noticed a cluster of environmental control subsystems just a few corridors away. Flickering lights, fluctuating gravity, compromised airflows, he could use these tools to sow confusion. But tampering with the ship's systems would almost certainly alert the pirates. Let them come! The environmental controls were housed in a cramped chamber, filled with rows of humming consoles and thick bundles of cabling. Marcus set to work, bypassing the ship's automated safeguards. His hands moved quickly but carefully, rerouting circuits and inputting commands into the console. The first effect was subtle. The lighting in the grand atrium began to flicker, the soothing white glow replaced by a strobe-like pulse. Then he adjusted the gravity stabilizers. A moment later, the invaders and the passengers experienced a sickening lurch as the artificial gravity fluctuated, alternating between 0G and crushing intensity. Marcus smiled grimly. This wasn't just a distraction, it was a disruption. The pirates would have to divert resources to stabilize their environment, buying him more time. Marcus was about to move to his next target when he heard the faintest of sounds, a high-pitched beep, beep, beep. His blood ran cold. He'd been found. Spinning around, he caught sight of a small, spider-like drone crawling along the corridor wall, its single glowing eye fixed on him. The pirates' trackers had arrived. With a sharp curse, Marcus bolted down the nearest hallway. As the drone emitted a loud alarm, the chase was on. The drone followed relentlessly, broadcasting his position. Marcus ducked through maintenance hatches, skidded around corners, and vaulted over exposed pipes. The ship's labyrinthine design gave him a slight advantage, but not for long. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the distance, pirates converging on his location. Spotting a junction up ahead, Marcus skidded to a halt. His eyes darted around the corridor, landing on a bundle of loose power conduits running along the floor. Inspiration struck. He yanked out his multi-tool and severed the conduits, exposing a tangle of sparking wires. The drone rounded the corner just as Marcus stepped away. The instant its metal legs touched the exposed wires, it convulsed violently, then exploded in a burst of sparks. Marcus shielded his face from the heat and took off again. He'd bought himself a few minutes at most. The pirates weren't just relentless, they were organized, communicating in their rapid, chirping language through translators clipped to their armor. Those devices gave Marcus an idea. If he could access one of the translators, he might manipulate their communication network, feeding them false information and throwing their operation into chaos. He needed a target. Creeping through the dim corridors, Marcus came upon a lone pirate busy inspecting one of the malfunctioning systems he'd sabotaged. The alien was tall and wiry, its insectoid body armored with shimmering chitin. Its weapon hung loosely at its side, and its translator blinked faintly on its chest. Marcus acted quickly. Grabbing a loose pipe from the floor, he approached silently, then struck the alien across the back of the head. It crumpled with a guttural hiss. Marcus wasted no time. He pried the translator from its armor and connected it to his diagnostic scanner. The interface was surprisingly complex, but Marcus had spent years working with alien logistics tech. Within minutes, he was navigating the device's communication protocols. He identified what appeared to be a command channel used by the pirates to coordinate their movements and input his first message. Human resistance gathering in Sector 12. Request reinforcements. The message, translated into the pirates' clicking language, was broadcast ship-wide. The response was immediate. Through the translator, Marcus intercepted frantic chatter as the pirates reacted to the fabricated threat. Squads began redeploying to the non-existent resistance zone, thinning their presence in critical areas. Marcus sent another message. Resistance leader identified, male, human armed, last seen in Sector 8. The irony wasn't lost on him as he described himself. The goal wasn't just to mislead, it was to make the pirates doubt their own systems, to believe that they were being outmaneuvered by an organized enemy. It worked. The pirates' movements became erratic, their once coordinated patrols now disjointed. Marcus overheard snippets of mistrust in their communications, subtle accusations of incompetence and betrayal. He grinned. The invaders' greatest strength, their discipline, was unraveling. Amid the chaos, Marcus noticed a pattern. One voice, deeper and more deliberate, cut through the noise on the command channel. This was no grunt. It was the leader, an imposing figure whose presence Marcus had glimpsed earlier in the grand atrium. The leader's commands were authoritative, its voice layered with a metallic undertone. Marcus suspected cybernetic enhancements. Through intercepted chatter, he learned the alien's designation, Varlon-Kree, a name that bristled with menace. Disabling Varlon-Kree wasn't just a strategic move, it was essential. Without their leader, the pirates' already shaken ranks would crumble. But Varlon-Kree wasn't going to fall for the same tricks as the others. This would require a direct confrontation. Using the translator, Marcus monitored Varlon-Kree's location. The alien was in the command module overseeing the pirates' operations. The module was heavily guarded, but Marcus wasn't planning to stroll in unprepared. He needed an edge. In a storage room, he assembled a crude but effective EMP device using components from the ship's systems, a power cell, a coil of conductive wire, and a capacitor. The device wouldn't be lethal, but it could disable Varlon-Kree's cybernetics long enough for Marcus to strike. Armed with the EMP and his multi-tool, Marcus made his way to the command module. The closer he got, the tighter his chest felt. The stakes were higher now, and every step brought him closer to the heart of the invaders' operation. The command module was a circular chamber filled with holographic displays and alien consoles. Varlon-Kree stood at its center, an imposing figure nearly 8 feet tall. Its cybernetic enhancements gleamed under the flickering lights, and its armor was more intricate than that of its subordinates. A glowing interface was embedded in its forearm, likely controlling the ship's systems. Marcus crouched in the shadows, watching as Varlon-Kree barked orders. The remaining guards stood at attention, their weapons trained on the entrances. This wasn't going to be easy. Marcus activated the EMP, setting a timer for 10 seconds. He took a deep breath, then rolled the device into the chamber. A pulse of blue light filled the room, accompanied by a high-pitched whine. Varlon-Kree staggered, its cybernetic limbs jerking erratically. The guards' weapons fizzled, their energy cells fried. Marcus seized the moment, charging into the room. He aimed for Varlon-Kree, dodging the disoriented guards. The alien leader recovered quickly, its enhancements rebooting, but Marcus was faster. He struck with the multi-tool's shock setting, targeting the exposed interface on Varlon-Kree's forearm. Sparks flew as the alien roared in pain. The two grappled, Varlon-Kree's strength nearly overwhelming Marcus. But Marcus had one final trick. He jammed the multi-tool into the leader's chest plate and activated its cutting function. The tool whined, piercing through the armor and into the cybernetic core beneath. Varlon-Kree let out a guttural screech and collapsed. With their leader down, the remaining pirates faltered. Marcus used Varlon-Kree's interface to transmit a ship-wide command. Abort mission. Retreat immediately. The pirates, demoralized and confused, obeyed. Within minutes, their raider vessel detached from the celestial horizon and vanished into the void. Marcus slumped against the wall of the command module, his body aching and his mind reeling. He'd won, but barely. The ship's systems were damaged, its crew scattered, and its passengers traumatized. Yet they were alive and the invaders were gone. For now, that was enough.